A horse named Joey forms an unbreakable bond with a young boy during World War I, embarking on an epic journey that will test their courage and loyalty beyond imagination. The movie opens up in 1912 in Devon, an agricultural county located in the southwest of England. Families living here depend on farming and animal husbandry to make their ends meet. One such family is the Narracotts, who farm a small section of land and live in a rented house near the farmlands. In the first scene, the young son of the Narracott family, Arthur, peeps curiously as his neighbor Mooney's horse gives birth to a foal. The young boy is left completely mesmerized as the recently born animal struggles to get up to its feet. As time passes by, Arthur keeps visiting Mooney's farm to watch the majestic mother and son horse grazing on the English countryside. He even offers the foal an apple one day in an attempt to forge a friendship with the animal. But it refuses to eat from Arthur's hand, leaving the teenager feeling a bit disheartened. In a few years' time, the foal grows into a majestic and healthy colt of the Bay Irish hunter breed, a kind mostly used for sports and show jumping. Mooney takes several of his animals, including the mother-son pair, to the village open-air market. He enlists the young Irish hunter in the market's auction, hoping to make some money for his family. In the meantime, Arthur's alcoholic father, Ted Narracott, also attends the auction with several of his friends. Ted is a farmer, but an injury in his right foot forces him to walk with a limp. He currently needs a strong horse that can plow the stony sections of his farmland. But when he sees Mooney's colt, he is instantly enamored by the magnificent beast. His friends remind him that he needs a workhorse and not a thoroughbred who is more of a show animal. However, when the auction starts, Ted immediately bids for the Irish hunter. His landlord, Mr. Lyons, is also present there with his son David, who has his eyes set on the same horse. The landlord then enters the auction, and soon a bidding war breaks out. Unwilling to let anyone get an upper hand, Ted keeps on increasing his bid until Lyons backs out. The farmer ends up buying a single horse for 30 guineas, an extremely high price for that era. He is also left with little money to pay off his hefty debt. While Ted leaves the auction rather proudly, Lyons reminds him that his rent is due in a few weeks' time. Following this, the farmer arrives home with the lean and gorgeous-looking horse. His wife, Rosie, is disappointed knowing that they needed an animal for farm work instead of a young colt. Ted tells her everything that happened in the auction and how he outbid their landlord. But Rosie gets angry at her husband, questioning how they will pay the rent now. Their son, Albert, who is now a fully grown adult, is thrilled to see the animal. This is the same horse that he has been seeing since his childhood. Thus, he begs his mother to let them keep it. He promises his mother that he will train the horse to help them in the farm. Rosie eventually allows him to keep it, hoping that her son can undo the damage his father has done. In the following weeks, Albert remains steadfast in his decision to train the colt. He even names it Joey and spends hours each day working with it. With the help of his best friend Andrew, the youngster teaches the horse to come to him when beckoned with a peculiar noise. Finally, after weeks of training, Joey rushes towards Albert when the latter hoots like an owl. Few days later, Mr. Lyons arrives at the Narracott household to collect the rent. It is revealed that Ted has previously taken a loan from Lyons and is currently short of money. The landlord demands the full amount, and Ted assures that he will get his money once they plow their land and finish harvesting their crops. Lyons laughs at this suggestion, saying that the fancy horse he bought at the auction will not get under a saddle, let alone a plow. He proposes a deal. If they can get the horse to plow their fields, he will give them an extension for their loan repayment. But if the full debt is not paid by October, he will take their house, farms, as well as the horses. Desperate, Ted gets to the barn and tries to put a collar on Joey. He struggles to do so, and Joey accidentally pushes him off in irritation. Albert also arrives in the barn and quickly calms his horse down. On the other hand, an enraged Ted grabs his gun and points it at the horse. But Albert steps in front of his father and promises him that he'll teach Joey how to plow their land. After the tension shimmers down, the family goes back to their house. In the following scene, Albert once again goes to the stable. He talks to Joey and successfully puts on the collar after gaining the animal's trust. He then proceeds to teach Joey how to plow while Ted watches them. Soon, Mr. Lyons, his henchmen, and several villagers arrive to watch Albert plowing the field. But Joey refuses to move even, despite Ted's encouragement. Albert then grabs the whip and hits the ground in a desperate attempt to get his horse moving. This scares Joey and he bolts forward, dragging the youngster along the ground. After several minutes of fruitless hard work, Joey collapses on the ground out of exhaustion. The rain starts pouring and Mr. Lyons announces that Ted has lost the deal. Just then Albert notices that the rain has made the ground softer and encourages Joey to continue. He finally manages to start plowing the field and the gathered villagers cheer for him. As a part of the deal, Mr. Lyon goes to Rosie and agrees to give them until October to repay the debt. Following this, Rosie and Albert have a conversation in the barn where the latter expresses his frustrations towards his dad. The young man blames his father's short temper and alcohol addiction for landing them in this mess. Hearing this, Rosie tells her son about Ted's past, a subject that he rarely discusses. She says that Ted doesn't limp because he is mostly drunk, rather because he has a wartime injury. Rose then shows Albert his father's medals from the Second Boer War in South Africa, where Ted served as a sergeant with the Imperial Yeomanry. He was severely wounded in action and received the Distinguished Conduct Medal for bravery under fire. Giving Albert his father's regimental pennant, Rosie adds that his father is not proud of what he did during the war. He later threw the flag and medals away, though Rose saved and kept them hidden. Albert comes out of the barn with a newfound respect for his father. He keeps the pennant and watches on as Ted plants seeds in the freshly plowed land. However, things take a turn for the worse. As a few weeks later, a heavy storm arrives over Devon. Ted wakes up the next day only to find that their crops have been utterly destroyed by the rain. He now has no other option than to sell Joey and repay Lyons with the money. The following day, Albert is in the village's market when a man arrives on a motorbike. He stops his vehicle in the middle of the market square and asks everyone to gather around. He then announces that the government has declared war against Germany. Furthermore, he adds that church bells will be rung at 6 p.m., signaling the beginning of the First World War. Albert rushes home to his parents with this news only to find his mother sobbing in the kitchen. He asks where his father is, but Rosie does not reply to him. The youngster then rushes to the barn and finds that Joey is nowhere to be seen. Following this, he runs back to the market and discovers that his father has sold Joey to Captain James Nichols of the British Army. Albert desperately tries to enlist in the army so that he can be near his horse, but is rejected for being too young. He watches with tears in his eyes as Joey is being taken away. Later, when the army parades through the market streets, Albert follows Joey and ties his father's pennant around his bridle. He promises to find Joey and bring it back home. Meanwhile, the soldiers take Joey to the army stables and keep it alongside Topthorn, a majestic black horse that belongs to a high-ranking official, Major Jamie. Joey is trained alongside Topthorn for his military role, and the two horses become close friends. As they train and prepare for battle, Captain Nichols draws several sketches of Joey and mails them to Albert, hoping to ease the young boy's worries. In the next scene, the two horses are subsequently deployed to France under the command of Major Jamie. The English soldiers maneuver towards the battlefield, hoping to catch the encamped Germans in a surprise attack. Captain Nichols addresses his soldiers to be brave and make their fallen comrades proud. They all ride on their horses and charge into battle. Initially, it looks like their plan has worked as the enemy is caught off guard. But the Germans have their own ace up the sleeve. They have hidden machine guns in the nearby forest. The battlefield is transformed into a chaotic mess of gunfire and fierce sword fights. The British are ambushed and overwhelmed by the enemy, leaving only a handful of survivors. Captain Nichols, Major Jamie are also killed, but their horses, Joey and Topthorn, survive. After the battle, the German captain orders his men to shoot all the horses. But a 14-year-old foot soldier, Michael, convinces him that the two horses, Joey and Topthorn, are fit to be used as ambulance wagons for their fallen soldiers. Thus, the two horses are spared and are made to carry wounded soldiers to a nearby infirmary. After some time, a German soldier arrives at their current camp with orders to march forward. The captain orders Gunther to stay with the horses and be ready to provide quick assistance if needed. He tries to convince the captain to let his younger brother stay with him, but is denied. Instead, Michael is assigned to the battlefront. That night, when Michael prepares his gear for the battle, Gunther reveals that he had promised their mother that he would keep him safe. Thus, he asks Michael to slip underneath the bed until they move out. But the latter assures his elder brother that he will be fine and asks to let him go. Before heading out, Michael gives his brother Joey's pennant for good luck and ties it to his bag. The next day, as the German troops start marching, Gunther arrives with Joey, while Topthorn comes running after them. Gunther then picks up his younger brother, keeps him on Topthorn, and the duo run away from there. Their goal is to ride to Italy, but they stop for the night to hide in a farm's windmill and are discovered by German soldiers. They are subsequently executed outside the windmill for deserting the army. The following morning, a young orphaned French girl named Emily finds the two horses inside the windmill. Also lying nearby is Joey's pennant that the little girl takes for herself. It is revealed that Emily lives at a nearby farm with her grandfather. One afternoon, German soldiers arrive and confiscate all food and supplies from their property. But Emily hides the horses in her bedroom to avoid them being taken by the Germans. Her grandfather is able to talk them out of trouble, as the German soldiers leave without checking Emily's bedroom. After the enemies leave, Emily has a conversation with her grandfather. Through it, it is revealed that she suffers from a disease that makes her bones fragile, and thus she is not allowed to ride the horses for fear of falling. Nonetheless, Emily's birthday arrives and the grandfather allows her to ride Joey. Excited, she gallops the horse up the hill adjacent to their farm. This proves to be a dreadful mistake, and when Emily does not come back immediately, Topthorn races off towards the hill, with the grandfather following behind. He sees that his granddaughter has run into the German soldiers who ransacked their farm earlier. The old man pleads with them to leave his granddaughter. As a payment for her life, the German soldiers take the two horses, despite Emily's protests. However, the grandfather keeps the pennant. Following this, Joey and Topthorn are forced into pulling German heavy artillery, an exhausting task. The animals are pushed to their limits, and many of them collapse from exhaustion. They serve in this brutal task under care of the German private Friedrich Hagelmann, who loves horses and tries to help them survive. But the captain of the German camp shows no mercy and shoots the weak horses. By the year 1918, Albert and his friend Andrew have enlisted in the English army. Currently, they are embroiled in the Second Battle of the Somme under the command of Mr. Lyon's son, David. There is no love lost between the son of the landlord and Albert, even on the battlefield. David takes every opportunity to mock Albert, teasing him about his persistent hooting like an owl. Unbeknownst to him, Albert keeps making that noise in hopes that Joey may somehow hear it and rush back to him. Suddenly, a bomb explodes near the English trench, and all the soldiers take their respective positions to respond to possible enemy fire. Each soldier adjusts his gear and checks his weapon in anticipation. And then, David gives the command, and the soldiers charge forward as one single unit. In the chaos and confusion, Albert and David find themselves side by side. They forget their differences momentarily and fight together for their country. Shortly afterwards, Albert manages to take down a German soldier who was holed up in a pillbox with a machine gun. This allows several English soldiers, including Albert and Andrew, to successfully reach the enemy's trenches. Unfortunately, at the German trench, a mustard gas bomb explodes right behind Andrew and kills him on the spot. On the other hand, German troops present in the trench begin to retreat to their barracks, which are further back from their current position. Private Friedrich Hagelmann watches on as his Kampfterriets begin losing their ground. A German soldier comes to him, asks him to leave the horses and run for his life. Joey and Topthorn, who have been serving the Germans for several years now, have survived years of hard service. But with chaos erupting everywhere, Topthorn finally succumbs to exhaustion and dies. Friedrich is then dragged away by other German soldiers, leaving Joey to face an oncoming tank. Eventually, Joey jumps over the tank and runs into no man's land. There, he gallops through the devastated town of Somme and gets entangled in the barbed wire barriers between the English and German trenches. That night, both British and German soldiers spot Joey from their respective trenches. None of them initially believed that a horse could have survived the bloody battle that raged on that afternoon. But soon afterwards, a British soldier from South Shields named Colin waves a white flag and crosses into the no man's land. He tries to free the horse and coax him to the British side. Suddenly, Peter, a German soldier from Dusseldorf, comes over with wire cutters, and together they free Joey from the barbed wire. The German soldier wants to take the horse on their side, but Colin says he came there first. Eventually, they decide to toss a coin, and Colin wins, bringing Joey safely to his side. But before leaving the no man's land, Peter gives the wire cutter to his British counterpart as a memorabilia. Colin then takes the horse to his trench. Elsewhere, Andrew has been killed by the gas attack, but Albert has survived, temporarily blinded and with bandages covering his eyes. While recuperating at a British medical camp, he is told about the miraculous horse rescued from no man's land. The army doctor then instructs Sergeant Fry to put Joey down because he cannot dedicate medical efforts to an animal at the moment. But when Fry is about to shoot, Joey hears the owl call he learned as a colt. The camera shifts as Albert is led through the troops to Joey. He once again sounds his own call, and Joey hurries to meet his long-lost friend. Albert then explains to the doctor that he raised Joey. With bandages still covering his eyes, Albert gives an exact description of the horse's markings, confirming his claim. Joey is covered in mud, so the veterinary surgeon at first dismisses Albert's statement. But he is astonished when soldiers wash away the grime, revealing the 4 white socks and diamond star on Joey's forehead, just as Albert had described. The doctor then assures Albert that they will take care of the horse, just like they would have done for a soldier. A few months later, as both Albert and Joey get better, the armistice is declared, bringing the First World War to an end. Unfortunately, Albert learns that only officers' horses will be shipped home, while the rest will be sold in an auction. Thus, he gathers funds from his fellow soldiers to purchase Joey. The day of the auction arrives, and Albert finds himself losing a bidding war with an older French gentleman. The bid goes from £30 to £100 in a short amount of time. It is then revealed that the other bidder is Emily's grandfather. The old man wants to buy Joey in memory of his granddaughter who recently passed away. He announces that should anyone bid against him again, he will sell his farm and increase the bid to £1,000. No other bid is placed, and the grandfather takes ownership of Joey. The old man plans to immediately return with Joey to his farm. He also tells Albert about his granddaughter and what the horse meant to her. Albert pleads for the horse with Emily's grandfather, who at first remains stoic. The old man is surprised, however, when the horse chooses to return to Albert as if to say goodbye. Subsequently, he shows Albert the military pennant that Emily had found along with Joey all those years ago. The old man asks him what it is. Albert's quick recognition of the pennant convinces the grandfather that Joey is indeed his horse. Returning Joey to his care is a better tribute to the memory of Emily than taking him back to France. In the final scene, Albert returns with Joey to his family's farm, where he hugs his parents and returns the pennant to his father. The elder Narracott extends his hand to the boy who has become a man.